I can remember when I was in high school and I was dating this girl and I really wanted to take our relationship to a deeper level. And so one night I'm saying goodnight to her and I reach in my pocket to hand her my class ring. Now, this was kind of a big deal in my mind. I had sacrificed for this ring. It had cost me some money. And as I handed it to her, I noticed the look on her face was not a look of pleasure. It was kind of a look of displeasure, like she didn't want it. As if she silently said, like, this is the best you can do to express your love for me? It was like the sacrifice was somehow defective. Well, speaking of defective, in the Old Testament, God spent some time talking to his people how they're supposed to sacrifice. And so God had set this system up that went like this. You sinned, you needed to make a sacrifice. And the sacrifice was most typically an animal like a cow or a sheep or a goat. And so if we sinned, we'd say, okay, I sinned. So now I need to find an animal and go to the temple and sacrifice it. Now, if it was me, I would go find this broken down animal just to get rid of it, or find this sick animal that I wasn't really having much need of and just get rid of it. I mean, it wouldn't be worth much anyway, and it was probably going to die soon. I mean, sure, it's a little bit defective, but it will do. The problem is that God would not accept my defective offering. So my guess is that if somebody showed up to the priest with a broken down, defective animal, the priest would look it over and just look at them and say, is this the best you can do? And then, knowing it wasn't the best they would do, he would say this, your offering is defective. This is not the best that you have. So evidently, God doesn't want offerings that are defective. So here's what it says in Leviticus chapter 22. Verse 19 says, you must present a male without defect. And then he goes on in the latter part of verse 21, he says, your offering must be without defect or blemish to be acceptable. So a sacrifice that God accepts is one that is without defect. Now, obviously, we don't bring animals to sacrifice anymore, and our sins are completely covered by the works of Jesus on the cross. However, we do bring a sacrifice of praise, and you being part of the worship team is sacrifice. You sacrifice your time, you sacrifice your energy, you sacrifice your money. But let me ask you something. Are you sacrificing your best, or is your sacrifice a little bit defective? So when it comes to rehearsals, are you coming with your best? Have you prepared yourself physically? Have you listened to the songs? Have you practiced them? Have you let them sink into you? Have you prepared yourself spiritually? Are you praying for your leader? Are you praying for your rehearsal? Are you praying for Sunday? Are you praying for your team? Are you praying that God would use your skills? Or do you just show up? And if you're showing up unprepared, then your offering is defective. And how does God respond to defective offerings? Well, he says that it has to be without defect to be acceptable. A defective offering is not acceptable. But the good news is that when we offer our best, it's acceptable to the Lord. So if the Lord asks you, is this the best you can do? How would you respond? So here's our challenge, to bring your absolute best to rehearsals, to bring your absolute best to your worship gatherings, and watch God do something extraordinary.